Dan Rubenstein, it's Valentine's Day at the end of the week, yeah?
It is Valentine's Day. We're recording this a couple days before Valentine's Day, but to me, this is a month-long celebration, a week-long celebration. You know me, Ty. I bathe in the romance jacuzzi. Also, I don't recommend that you bathe in romance jacuzzis. I sort of spiritually do it. I am very excited for this. We just did a show about things in college football that grind our gears, and we are flipping the script, and we are going to turn our focus on elements of the sport. But I think this is how I approach it. I don't know if you did the same way. This is not like, I love like halfback sweeps. This is like, I love this team. I love this player. I don't care who knows it. I love this archetype of quarterback like this. I like this team's current defensive makeup. I like this part of the sport specific, like this conference, whatever. So this is more specific about things that get our heart beating, Ty.
Oh, yeah. I can feel it.
Get the hairs on our arms standing up.
I can feel it. Getting those butterflies, yeah.
Get our heads swirling. I must have Alex Golesh's offense.
Settle. Settle.
Yeah, so this is we're honoring love and college football today. Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Well, wherever it is that you may be, if Valentine's Day is your thing.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy your day on Friday. Do you have anything planned with the missus? Maybe we can get into that a little bit later.
I'm going to be out in California. I think the plan is to go out to dinner. I don't know if it's going to be the night of Valentine's or a surrounding night of some kind, but yeah, we're going to go out to dinner. We'll have babysitting with my parents, so we'll be good. Yeah, we're going to have a night out. Yeah.
Wonderful. It'll be a little bit warmer out there as well.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, wherever you may be, enjoy your Valentine's Day. And of course,
when you think about love, it's always warm, Ty. Always warm.
How dare you interrupt my intro?
No,
I'll allow it this time. Hit follow, hit subscribe if you love our show the way we love the Verballerhood. That, of course, goes a long way towards helping Dan and I out. Of course, you can head on over to verballers.com to further cement your status as a certified or premium Verballer, get access to bonus episodes, ad-free content, our Discord server, and much, much more. We actually put a post out, you did, yesterday at time of recording. We are starting to put together some of our show content. The folks on our premium tier have the ability to weigh in.
Our producers, yeah.
And sort of be our producers, yeah. Help us guide the show here in the off season. So, all right, Dan Rubenstein. On that note, we have waited far too long to get into our content for today. Since you were the one that hatched up this little scheme to do this show, which, by the way, I think we've done every year.
Probably.
Over the last 10 years or so. It's not a new concept.
We like a lot of people do it. Sport. I don't care who knows it, Ty.
A lot of people do this concept. We do it best, but perhaps we're biased. Why don't you start off, since it seems like you're the more passionate one of the two of us, yeah?
I am. I mean, I don't know if this is a story for this episode or a Patreon-only episode talking about your Charlize Theron moment, stretch, dalliance. I don't know. But
dalliance, yes. Dalliance is a good way to put it,
Dalliance is a good way to put it. Okay, so I already mentioned I bring Alex Golesh and USF, and maybe I was a year early, maybe I was 2 years too early, but I still treasure the fire he had after USF beat Syracuse a couple of years ago in the bowl game.
Yep.
I still like their offensive ceiling. I still love the shots that they refused to stop taking against Alabama last year in a losing effort. I like that they were great against Alabama in sort of confusing, what was it, Ty Simpson and the Notre Dame dude,
Tyler Buckner. Yeah.
2 years ago. And the defense quietly got better. It was an up and down year dealing with a lot of injuries. I may have been a year early, but I am just going to be a USF believer until I am just emphatically told by the Bulls themselves not to be. And I'm not ready to give up on this love, Ty. I'm willing to fight for this love.
You're willing to fight for the love, yeah.
There is something about the American right now where obviously Memphis going through some changes and losing some key players, and that losing teams like Houston and Cincinnati and SMU, like big programs that there is a wide open field to it. Obviously, Army coming in year one and winning it, I think, is indicative that there is an openness to the American right now. And so I'm going to keep canoodling with USF, Ty. I don't care who knows it.
Well, first and foremost,
yeah,
you buried the lead by not dedicating this entire show concept to Marcus Freeman and his tight white pants. Okay?
We'll get to Notre Dame. That's your number one?
No, it goes without saying. That's the whole concept. The umbrella sort of thing for this entire show is Marcus Freeman. Thank you. And the tight white pants, it's in the same genus, phylum, and species as PJ Fleck wearing his medium Q-zip or whatever that thing is. All right, we have a lot of this in college football. Marcus Freeman added his name to the pantheon of coaches going with the snugger fit of some article. Yes? Agreed.
Yes. One game could have been an accident. Be like, ooh, I guess this is skinny fit. I'm looking for slim fit. But then it kept happening. So
and it kept happening. No. This is a trend now. It's just the way he prefers the cut of the pants. Good on him. Sure. He can pull it off. All right. Agree? Yes. Umbrella concept for this show. Secondly,
so are you saying that's something you're in love with about Notre Dame? Marcus Freeman's pant tightness?
Not in love with, monitoring.
You're monitoring? How closely are you monitoring Marcus Freeman's pants? Okay.
No, the reason I bring this up, you know why I bring this up. You know I have a weird obsession with coach attire.
That's true.
Okay, so whether you're like PJ Fleck on one side of the spectrum or Bret Bielema, who wears like a poncho on the other side of the spectrum, not just because he's a bigger dude, whatever.
Yeah.
But he just prefers that baggier fit. I monitor all sides, the entire spectrum of the coaching attire thing.
Well, this brings up a new question. What are Bill Belichick's choices going to be wearing Carolina blue? Is he going to do the cutoff hoodie thing once again?
100%.
So he's bringing that look. It's not going to top Biff Poggi at Charlotte.
Nothing tops Biff Poggi. Nothing tops Biff
Back
Poggi.
at Michigan, I believe now.
No. Here's the thing about the coaches, okay? And I say this lovingly.
Yes, okay.
Shut up, I'm talking.
Go.
Here's the thing about coaches. And I say this lovingly on the Valentine's Day show, okay? These guys are all degenerates. All of them.
Yes.
They're all sickos in a great college football way. They are.
You betcha.
And so fashion is not necessarily paramount when they're leaving the house in the morning.
Right.
There are many of them out there who have made interesting choices. I don't know why I'm getting so fired up about this, but I am.
I'm listening.
So I'd like to move past this part of the conversation if at all possible, but I would just say in general, Freeman in the pants and Fleck in the Q-zip and Bret Bielema and the art smock, all of this stuff gets my Valentine's Day.
You love college coach fashion decisions that a coach is going to plant
fashion
his flag and say, I'm a visor guy.
That's right.
I'm a vest guy. I'm a khaki guy. I'm a cleat guy. I'm a slim fit guy.
All right.
I'm a hoodie guy.
We get it.
Okay.
We get it.
Okay.
Now, as for my actual thing that you
wasn't one?
Oh, that was one. But my actual thing here that you set me up for perfectly that I veered away from because I had this thing about the coaching attire. I have labeled this one as suddenly relevant Army.
Oh, I have something similar. Yes.
Okay, so Army went 12-2 this year. And I would say if we are being fully transparent, if we are looking at ourselves in the mirror on the solid verbal, there are many times over our 17-year run, if you can believe it's been that long, of doing this podcast, where we have had verballers who want us to talk more about Army, and we do not. And the reason that we have not is because most of our conversation over the years has been focused on who are the most relevant teams from a national perspective.
Right.
For better or worse. That is what the audience, by and large, is after. Army was really good this year, and we knew before the start of the year that they were going to be good. And not only that, but them now being a participant in the American Conference added, I think, a certain luster to that football program. we got a pretty good chunk of the way through the season believing that Army was relevant in the playoff conversation as well.
Yeah.
They're now also in the same conference as Navy, which means 2 option teams, 1 conference, which is going to be brutal. We didn't see it this past year where somebody had to play both back-to-back, but for sure, the Bruce Feldman body blow theory is going to come into play.
Sure.
For somebody down the road. Somebody's going to get them both back-to-back. Okay? I think they will continue to be relevant with this playoff conversation, certainly with the conference conversation. I think they're going to continue to be a more interesting part of our college football narrative moving forward.
Right.
And certainly from the standpoint of what people were interested in this year as opposed to all of the previous ones, there was definitely a renewed interest in Army football.
Yeah.
And I count myself among those folks who wanted to talk more about Army, wanted to read more about Army.
Yeah.
So from my standpoint, I don't know if this is like getting flirty with Army. I don't know if this getting serious with Army. I don't know if this is cyber stalking Army, whatever. I was into the Army narrative this year, and I suspect moving forward it's going to be more of the same. Because 12-2 is a pretty good first campaign if you're jumping into a new conference, yeah?
I agree. It's incredible. I put down, so my specific wording is a version of Army that randomly throws double-digit pass attempts.
Yes.
That
okay.
There were games, I know UTSA relatively late, maybe the Navy game as well, where in keeping with the Valentines theme, it's discovering something new in a partner that's unexpected. That like, if you came home one day and Kate were like, hey, tomorrow when you get home, this is an imaginary world in which you work from an office. When you get home, what if you dress like a firefighter? And you're like, oh, is that something? And she's like, there's that new wrinkle about Army football, keeping it fresh in my college football world, throwing it with Bryson Daly like they did this year.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And like not the reverse, but even taken to a bigger extreme, a full firefighter calendar, Ken Niumatalolo opening it up on offense for San Jose State.
Yeah. Turning over a new leaf, right? Finding a new chapter.
Like a divorcee who has done some like inward thinking.
Right.
And you know what? I could be a better listener. I could be a more attentive partner.
He cashed in the BetterHelp offer that's running on the podcast. He used the offer code.
Yes.
He rounded himself out, and he's turned over a new leaf.
And the beneficiary is the second spouse. That like, oh, this guy worked through his stuff.
Yeah.
And is now, man, he is shopping for fresh produce every Tuesday. He is
with the cloth bag.
New TV shows.
He's graduated past the plastic bag. He's going cloth bag, right?
Yes. Ken Niumatalolo, you get home from your day, and he says, tell me about your day. Right? I appreciate that in Ken Niumatalolo showing himself to be a versatile second act kind of guy at San Jose State.
I appreciate that.
Which, by the way, this dovetails nicely into, I just like San Jose State and Fresno State football because I feel like they almost get lost a little bit, kind of between the Bay Area teams moving conferences, and like you've got the Stanford Jim Harbaugh and the nerdy man ball and Cal with fun players here and there on both sides of the ball. Then USC and UCLA hogging so much spotlight out west in California. And Fresno State in the heat of the San Joaquin Valley, and San Jose State has had some fun teams recently, like the forgotten teams in the shadows of California college football. I always just find myself hoping that they're fun.
Yeah.
And hopefully with Fresno State entering into a new era with a new head coach and Matt Entz, hopefully we get that Fresno State and San Jose State in the Mountain West for now are going to be teams that are excitable to us, especially on offense.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. Yeah. Why don't you do another one or two? Because you have more of these than I do.
Sure.
And I need to cool down after that rant at the top of the show. I apologize for raising my voice. I hope that didn't offend you or the missus or anybody out there.
Place, Ty.
Well, listen, we're passionate guys, man. We care about this sport. We care about this podcast. We care about this subject.
I agree. Okay.
Oh, I'm talking over the guitar. Okay.
No, it's okay. It's okay. The guitar's there to be spoken over.
Give me another one.
I have written down here, club level late arrival.
Oh, man.
So
Dan, I have this on my list.
There is
Oh my
something.
God. Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead. I'm ready.
Are we fighting over the same potential partner here? I don't know. Um, there is something that I love and treasure about in this era. It's a contradictory stance where I can appreciate that, like, Fluff Bothwell's going to Mississippi State to get more attention and to perhaps better his future and his draft stock on a bigger stage. Can he do what he did at South Alabama at Mississippi State? But Cade Klubnik, as a former 5-star, sticking it out with Clemson, having, I think, a breakthrough junior year, I would say, or senior year, however many years he's been at Clemson at this point.
1,000. He's been
Been
there
there
forever.
for quite some time. Clemson having the baggage of the DJU era and huge expectations because they were so great in the late 20-teens, the mid to late 20-teens, and no, they're not taking portal guys, and they're not of the modern era, and Dabo's taking heat, and that Cade Klubnik leading his team to an ACC crown and the playoff, and potentially Kenny Picketing his final season in Clemson, sticking it through and just sort of exploding finally in the way that, because of eligibility rules, that, you know, he could be Bo Nix, he could be Michael Penix, but doing it all at Clemson. They've built up receivers. Obviously, they've had some high caliber running backs these past couple of years. The defense took a hit last year, but even still, that we could have a situation in which Cade Klubnik realizes his potential and his growth curve.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty great thing, honestly. I don't have a fully formed, like, July, August opinion of Clemson in 2025, but the idea that Cade Klubnik can finish strong, no illusion intended here on Valentine's Day.
Sure.
Not a Peter North illusion.
Gotcha.
I think it's a great thing. I think it is.
Well, here's the funny thing about Cade Klubnik and the club level. I mean, you know, I've been on the club level. I started the club level.
Yeah.
I'm a founding member of the club level. I never quite sold all my tickets, just some of the games that I didn't care as much about.
Yes.
As one with season tickets is wont to do. But I have joked on this show forever about the conversations I have on the phone with Uncle Joe, because as a, what's the word? Tormented Giants fan.
Okay.
Let's say Uncle Joe has long been in the market for any quarterback other than Daniel Jones, or any quarterback other than the quarterbacks they've had since Eli Manning.
Sure.
And we have had conversations, I kid you not, about nearly everybody who had a moment in college football over the past 3 seasons. I mean, I get the phone calls at random hours in the middle of the day from Uncle Joe wanting to know, hey, just out of curiosity, how do we feel about this Haynes King kid? Okay, anybody? Eli Holstein. What do we know about Eli Holstein?
Talk to me about Braylon Braxton. On
Is he
Miss.
eligible? No, he's not eligible.
Yeah.
Is he eligible? I had a Cade Klubnik conversation with Uncle Joe later in the year. Apparently, Cade Klubnik was on his Big Blue Interactive message board, and he wanted to know, what do I know about Cade Klubnik? What can I tell him about Cade Klubnik?
Yeah.
And, you know, what can anybody say about Cade Klubnik? Cade Klubnik coming into this year was very inconsistent.
Yeah.
Is very inconsistent. Obviously, the talent's there. I think the talent's there, but he just was inconsistent. And what we saw from him, especially in the playoff game, Dan, playoff game,
on the
was
road,
eye-opening. If you look at Heisman stats, or Heisman odds, excuse me, Cade Klubnik's name is now on that list. And I think it's powered in large part by what we saw in the playoff game. He was incredible in the playoff game. He looked amazing. That was the best version of him that we have seen yet. And so I am with you 100% on Cade Klubnik. I want to see him turn over this new leaf. I do think getting a little bit more firepower out wide with TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, I think that helped. But maybe it's just another year in the offense. Maybe that helped. I don't know what it was, but something clicked in that playoff game, or something clicked down the stretch. Let's be a little bit more generous with our love towards Cade Klubnik. And I'm really excited to see what happens next season. I am genuinely excited to see what he looks like now in his last year with Clemson, because 10-4 team, 10-14, made the playoff, as you said, went on this run to win the ACC. I don't know. I'm in on Cade Klubnik again. Yeah.
Avery Johnson.
Oh, this is
I'm not
yours
giving up
here.
on us. I'm not giving up on us.
This is, I need to find my sound from Seinfeld where Costanza says, I think it moved. This
I'm
is your
not
guy.
giving up on Avery Johnson at all. And we're going to go to couples counseling. And we're going to figure out how we can make fewer mistakes, communicate, complete some more passes, craft an offense now that there's, I guess, a new full-time offensive coordinator at Kansas State and Matt Wells after they lost last year's to, I think he's one of the Cowboys. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Connor Riley, I want to say. Hopefully I got that right. That Avery Johnson, the best of him, to me, is something I can't escape, Ty. And so I'm not giving up on Avery Johnson. I'm not willing to say that he's, a sometime star. I am ready to be hurt once again by Avery Johnson's potential because it's tantalizing and I can't look away. So Avery Johnson is still on my love list.
You used to call him a very Johnson.
A very Johnson.
You're really into him.
Of course.
Absolutely. Okay. I've got Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. It probably goes without saying. I don't need to drone on about this, why we love Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, but Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams definitely were the talk of the town. From the receiver position, both of them may have been, if they were eligible to come out in the NFL draft this past year, they probably would be the top two receivers off the board. Jeremiah Smith might have gone one overall. He's that good. These guys have come in. They have obviously made a lot of noise. Jeremiah Smith played for a national champion in his first year. Ryan Williams, we'll see if they can round out the offense now post Jalen Milroe. But clearly both of them have incredible ceilings and are going to be fun to watch for the next 2 years at a minimum.
Ty, have you ever been in, and this is a peek into Ty's history and soul, have you ever been pre-Kate in an entanglement that you knew wasn't going to end well?
Mm-hmm.
That you were thinking to yourself, you know what? This isn't necessarily a long-term thing.
Yes.
This isn't a great match, but in the moment, I'm ready for the pain it's going to cause me because of what I am able to get from this situation.
Right. This is Taylor Swift. I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
As I started watching Jeremiah Smith last season early, you're like, oh man, this dude is something else already, immediately as a freshman. And then heading into the first game against Oregon, I thought to myself, you can't hope to stop him. You can only hope to contain him. And Oregon, by and large, they weren't fully gashed by Jeremiah Smith. But then as I watched him the rest of the season, and then as I watched Oregon against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, the Oregon defense in the Big Ten championship game, I thought to myself, I can't look away. But Jeremiah Smith is going to hurt me. And I know he's going to hurt me.
You love him until you realize you have to play against him.
There's going to be that conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Between you and Jeremiah Smith. And as Oregon and Ohio State appear to be on at least a short-term collision course in the Big Ten these next couple of seasons, that Jeremiah Smith will still be eligible. I love Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And so that is my very specific romantic entanglement. I have been in that entanglement where like, well, this is clearly heading to a place of acrimony and it's going to be painful for everybody involved, but
come on.
I'm having fun right now.
Come on. Why not? All right.
So that's my relationship with Jeremiah Smith.
Let me make an awkward segue over to the
Please.
UConn Huskies.
Yeah.
So they were 3-9 last year. And I went back through before we did this episode. I was looking through my notes to see what I said about the UConn Huskies. And this is a team that I think had won 6 games in Jim Mora's first year. They took a step back, won 3 games in his second year. And coming into this year, the questions that I had were mostly around the fact that there was a lot new. Even though the schedule was easier, it was hard to see them taking a giant step forward.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. UConn had 8 games decided by 10 points or fewer this year, including 7 in a row to end the regular season. Then they go on to beat North Carolina, a hollowed out North Carolina, I should add, by 13 in the bowl game to finish 9-4.
Yes.
In Jim Mora's third year. On top of that, one of the other things that I noted in the preseason was that they had switched up to a 3-3-5 defense, which from now until the end of time will fascinate me. I don't know why. I'm just always into the 3-3-5. But they switched up to the 3-3-5 led by Matt Brock, who I believe came from Mississippi State. And it was just unclear how any of this stuff was going to take. They had a quarterback from Maine. Like, it was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Which way is this thing going?
By the
Jim
way,
Mora?
Sidebar here on the 3-3-5. Every sport kind of has its own version of coach comes in and says, actually, this is how we're going to do things.
This is how we're going to do it.
Like, if Penn State hired a new basketball coach and you're watching the press or whatever, and that coach says, here's something that I think people are going to be into. We're going to press all game, every game, full court.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, all right. I'm into where this, like, sure, it's a vision. It's a strategy. It's perhaps unique in a sea of similar systems. And a lot of teams run, a 3-3-5 situationally, or their 3-3-5 elements. But I always do appreciate where you're just like, yeah, we're Jeff Castile heads over here at Arizona, at West Virginia. And we're going 3-3-5, and that's who we are. And let's get weird with it.
Yeah, speaking of Penn State basketball, by the way, Eric Haslam, who does something called Haslametrics, he currently has Penn State basketball 364th out of 364 college basketball teams.
So they could use
on his momentum metrics. Yeah. They have bottomed out. They're horrible. They're so bad. If there is a version of the 3-3-5 or the 40 minutes of hell or any sort of new and novel basketball concept, Penn State is interested, Dan. They are interested. Full stop.
Introductory press conference.
Yeah.
All centers.
No disrespect to Matt Rhodes, who I was all about.
Yeah.
Nah.
All centers. The new Penn State basketball experience. Great.
It's so bad right now. It is so bad right now. I won't go too far down the line with talking Penn State basketball, but to say the least, it has not been a pleasant introduction for Matt Rhodes since coming over from VCU, I guess.
It's a volleyball school, Ty. It's cool.
It's a wrestling school.
Volleyball and wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what Penn State does. Continue.
All right, it's Mike Rhodes, by the way. I'm calling him Matt. Mike Rhodes.
It's okay.
Yeah.
He hasn't earned a proper first name if you're 364th in momentum.
My apologies. All right, I'm going to send out I'm not going to make this too official.
Okay.
But I just want to know that I want this to know that I am interested in it. And the reason that I'm going to give this a Valentine is because, frankly, I don't understand it. But I am curious. Not fully against it. I'm curious. It's a trend. You and I have talked about it. It is this weirdness of running backs that have two mouthpieces.
Okay.
I don't understand this, Dan.
Casual and formal?
I don't understand this.
Okay.
I really don't. And I don't know enough about it to truly hate it, but I know enough about it to not understand it at all.
And so this gets your juices flowing? I don't understand where the love in Valentine is. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. I'm curious. I'm intrigued about the things that I don't understand. Okay? In the words of Ted Lasso.
I apologize for talking about Ty's juices so openly and flippantly. Continue.
In the words of Ted Lasso, don't be judgmental, but be curious. I'm curious here.
Okay.
It seems to me there's only a limited amount of real estate on the front of the helmet.
Yeah.
You can't hang a whole lot down there.
Right.
It's just limited. Limited access. You need to be able to see where you're going.
Okay. Was there a running back specifically?
Who's the dude? Some guy from Oregon had it.
Jordan James, I assume?
I think Jordan James had it, yeah.
Okay.
And I saw this pop up randomly throughout the course of this past season. I don't remember it being a thing before this season.
So you're not trying to be judgy. You're not trying to be a scold. But we're saying here today, Ty Hildenbrandt, mouth curious.
I'm
just trying to translate it to people.
Mouthpiece curious, please.
Okay, sorry. Mouth curious, mouthpiece curious.
We'll stick with that. So this is, I think, the equivalent. I was trying to work this out in my head because I knew you would be dead silent when I mentioned this.
Sure.
I was trying to work out in my head what is the equivalent, and this is the equivalent of the person,
Okay.
with like the very interesting look or very interesting personality or just very interesting character trait.
Yeah.
That you didn't think you'd be into, but you're kind of into, and you just need to know more about it before you can,
Do you
fully
have
commit to the
personal
bit.
experience with this?
Um,
I never thought I'd be into somebody who appeared to be or seems to be blank, but here I am, intrigued. Could be big, could be little. A bob haircut. You know what I'm saying? Or
yeah,
a little gothy.
maybe. I don't know. I need to think more about this.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
two
Fair
mouthpieces.
enough.
Two mouthpieces.
Double mouthpiece.
Yeah, they get one of the Valentines dropped in the bag on the front of their desk.
I have Rich Rod coming back, and I love it for West Virginia fans. Okay? So this is... It's something that so many people seem to want to revisit. Will it be an Affleck Lopez situation? Getting back together, hoping that this high profile, I mean, that was a pretty influential thing for like celebrity gossip, right?
Yeah.
West Virginia and Rich Rod round one, very influential college football offenses. So I don't know if it's going to work out, but a central tenet of who I am is GLAC, Ty, give love a chance.
Sure.
And so I'm giving this a chance that they circled back and found each other once again. They realized how right they may be for each other. And so I love this for them, that they're giving it a shot to really give it the old college try, Ty. In their middle age, maybe they just weren't meant for each other in the long term early. But they've seen other people, and they're circling back and saying, you know what? We had it good together. We had a spark. And so this is not my opinion necessarily that it's going to work out, but I love it for the swing of it. No pun intended.
I love definitely a pun intended there. Come on.
Because it's not a swing situation. That's not a dalliance. It's not a one night thing. I love it for the vision and the hope of it all. So I love it. I'm great with it.
Speaking of vision, speaking of hope, let's talk about Sam Leavitt, shall we?
Let's.
How did you feel about Sam Leavitt towards the
I have
end
a
of the
very similar item here. I felt great about Sam Leavitt.
I have Sam Leavitt here. I have Kevin Jennings on here in a similar vein. I have Sawyer Robertson actually on here.
Good answer.
In a very similar vein. And I think the general thrust, pun intended, of this is we're talking about quarterbacks who maybe weren't coming into this season with a whole lot of acclaim. Kevin Jennings was a backup. Sam Leavitt was a transfer. Mm-hmm. Sawyer Robertson, a lot of us at the start of the season, or maybe not start of the season, but say start of the preseason, start of the transfer portal cycle, thought it was going to be DeQuan Finn. These are all guys who were overlooked in some capacity. And I think all of them stepped up in a huge way. Sam Leavitt coming into this coming season is like one of the top quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Truly. One of the top quarterbacks. What he was able to do down the stretch, it speaks volumes about his own talent, but certainly just the scouting department that Kenny Dillingham's put together. Sam Leavitt didn't come in with much acclaim. He was a transfer from Michigan State. Barely saw the field. We did the show with Bruce a couple weeks ago. We talked about what Dillingham did in bringing him to Tempe and how that was a coup. Yeah, huge deal. Huge deal. He's the real deal. Kevin Jennings. Look, Kevin Jennings took over relatively early. It was an eyebrow raiser for me, just speaking personally, because I was in on Preston Stone. I was in on SMU, I think, before almost anybody. And when they lost that game in the manner that they did, 18-15 week 2, I believe, to BYU, I did not see BYU coming at all. But for me, it was like a gasp, an audible gasp when I saw that they pulled Preston Stone. I didn't understand it at the time. I came to understand it, obviously, the deeper we got into the year with watching more and more Kevin Jennings. He was a really good quarterback, and definitely gave that offense another dimension. And then the Sawyer Robertson thing, I think, was really overlooked. But Sawyer Robertson, again, I didn't think he was going to start. Mm-hmm. Sawyer Robertson ended up being pretty good through 28 touchdowns, just 8 picks. His completion percentage went way up over the previous season in limited action. I think he's the real deal. I genuinely think he's the real deal. And I don't think it's going to get a lot of love because Baylor wasn't one of like these top line teams that we talked a whole lot about this season. But I do think they were able to pull their offense together largely on his arm. And so those three guys in particular, I think, when I'm thinking of guys that deserve a Valentine, Kevin Jennings, Sam Leavitt, Sawyer Robertson.
So basically you're saying last year's offseason was the first half of She's All That.
Yes.
And then
right.
then the glasses came off at the
That's
start of the season, and we have the second half of She's All That. It's a
Correct.
She's All That situation. And I guess in this scenario, Kalani Sitake is Freddie Prinze Jr.? I don't know.
Don't do that to him.
Freddie Prinze Jr. Icon.
I'm out on Freddie. I've always
really?
Yeah, I'm out.
Oh, okay. I don't know why. It seems to have had a pretty good
What
stretch
was the
there.
baseball movie he was in?
Summer Catch with Jessica Biel?
Okay.
It's a classic.
No. It's not a classic.
What?
We need to talk about being in the middle of a no-hitter at the end of this thing. Leave it. Walking off the mound. I get that it's Jessica Biel. Okay.
GLAC. Give love a chance.
I get. You can give love a chance without walking off the mound in the middle of a no-hitter to catch Jessica Biel at the airport. That is unforgivable in the sports world. Unforgivable.
I don't know how old I was when that movie came out. You can look up the year that movie came out. I think there was a sprinkler scene with Jessica Biel.
I get it.
I don't know,
Listen,
man.
I get it. The movie was in 2001, so just as we were all coming of age. I get it.
It's 18, 17. Yeah.
I get it. All right? I get it from that standpoint. I don't get you can't walk off the mound in the middle of a no-hitter.
Did Freddie Prinze marry Sarah Michelle Gellar?
I believe so.
How can you hate on Freddie Prinze?
I hate on him because of that scene.
That's a character, Ty.
I hate that character. I hate the character. I hate the plot. There were a lot of...
Wasn't he in Scooby-Doo?
Another reason to not be in. That was a bad movie.
Scooby-Doo. Oh, I hadn't seen the movie, but
Pro Scooby-Doo, that was a very bad movie.
I haven't seen it. Here's what I have down for like the Sam Leavitt situation. I have ASU energy. Now, I didn't love some of Kenny Dillingham's initial hires, and Bo Baldwin's gone, and so I was sort of skeptical about like this first-time coach stepping into this situation and having to recruit so many portal guys and just backfilling and like really struggling to round the program into shape quickly. But what he's done in year two, we talked about in the playoff, and this is a point I made. This is a point you made, that like it increases the number of teams who feel like their seasons were failures because they failed on a bigger stage with this expanded playoff.
Okay.
And, you know, Oregon goes 13-0, wins the Big Ten in their first season. And how do you look at the season and in any other way than like at least a semi-failure because of the way they lost the Rose Bowl to Ohio State? That it's heaping unnecessary negativity on other, like the way Indiana's like yelled at by Kirk Herbstreit because they weren't as good as Notre Dame with a quarterback who had a torn ACL. Whereas Indiana should be looked at as one of the overwhelmingly positive stories of the season. ASU, even with their loss in the playoff, has immaculate vibes and energy heading into 2025. That if you could bottle what ASU fans feel right now about their program, about Kenny Dillingham's enthusiasm and the rocket ship that is ASU football, the only negative thing I feel about ASU in this moment about Arizona State is that my team, also on the West Coast, doesn't get to participate. That could have been a really fun back and forth with the Kenny Dillingham, Dan Lanning connection that ASU and Oregon are now ships passing in the night out west. And so the energy, though, I don't know if it's a honeymoon phase comparison here, but it's kind of, you're in a new relationship and man, things are just going so well.
Yeah.
You are just vibing, Ty. And so I love that for ASU because that's not something that 124 teams have at the moment.
What else do you got?
Also on my list of things that I love, I have Zerbiak QBs.
Okay, explain.
And specifically, the Diego Pavia presence in our lives. But like, there's more than just Diego Pavia, right? They're the dual threat guys that it's 3rd and 2. You know that they're going to be counted on somehow, some way. Well, Talon Green at Arkansas, the guys that are just like, the offense is this guy in the way that Miami of Ohio's offense, and people are constantly making Wally Zerbiak references in 2025, as we all know.
Of course.
In the mid to early 90s, whenever it was
Miami, Ohio, right?
Miami of Ohio. The do everything quarterback that obviously we've seen it at places like Florida with Tim Tebow and dual threats all over the place. They're like, well, it's 4th and short. You're getting a healthy dose of this. But Diego Pavia beat Alabama doing it. I can appreciate that. So I appreciate that we have him, I believe, still in our lives at Vanderbilt. Somehow, some way.
How many years of eligibility does he have left?
Some kind of injunction.
He has at least one per, I think, the latest round of lawsuits.
Yes.
But that's stemming from eligibility that he believes he is due because of the way the NCAA treats junior college. So does he have 1? Does he have 2 years left?
I think he has a year left. By the way, I don't know. Notre Dame rode this concept to a national championship berth.
I was going to say, if we're giving props to one Diego Pavia, by your definition, shouldn't Riley Leonard also be in that category?
Yeah. I mean, they both use that energy to beat disappointing SEC teams.
That's right.
So, yeah, it tracks. And so I'm good with it, Ty. I'm good with it, and I appreciate the Diego Pavia experience.
I have Sharon Moore.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
What is your romantic connection to the Sharon Moore 2024 experience?
It's not so much the 2024 experience. It's more a situation that I think has a ton of potential moving forward.
Okay. You're planting your flag now.
I am. I think we find ourselves in this situation as fans all too often when a big name coach leaves, hands it over to a lieutenant, and we're used to that situation running out of steam. I go way back to like Butch Davis at Miami giving it to Larry Coker. That ran out of steam, right?
Right.
We've seen instances over the years now where that is not the case, right? Notre Dame handed it over to Marcus Freeman. Clearly, they went to a national championship game.
Right.
But it's just hard to follow a legend of sorts like Jim Harbaugh was at Michigan.
So would this be like you dating Kate's best friend if it didn't work out? Where you're like, well, we don't know where this is going, but there's a familiarity there that I'm hopeful about.
I have not worked out the arithmetic here in my head, okay? But where I'm going with this is it was a rocky first year for Sharon Moore. It was a rocky first year. And I just feel like it is all too common over the history of this sport for the coach to not recognize what needs to change, for him to keep doing what he thinks he should have done in year one, and for it to come off the rails very quickly. And I don't think Sharon Moore is doing that. I think Sharon Moore, through what Michigan has done in the recruiting game with Bryce Underwood, through what they have done in trying to overhaul some of the staff, it feels to me like Sharon Moore recognizes what needs to change in order to get Michigan to a better place moving forward. And so I'm hopeful. I'm not staking all of my reputation, what little remains of it, on Michigan, to use your terminology, becoming this rocket ship. I don't know if that's going to happen. I like Bryce Underwood. I think Bryce Underwood's the real deal.
Okay.
But Sharon Moore feels to me, with the way that he got that team playing down the stretch, with beating Ohio State, with beating Alabama to close out the year, with some of the momentum I think they've been able to capture here through the recruiting game, some of the hires that they have made to try and, I think, round out that staff. I like what he is doing. And I am optimistic that moving forward, he can get that program back to a point where we're not talking about them in terms of an offense that is just hamstrung by a bad system or a bad quarterback or whatever. I think they're going to get better. I think they're going to get
Okay.
better. I think they're going to get better quickly. And I just think it was a really awkward start. It was an awkward transition year. Now, definitely deserves some of the blame for thinking that they can roll with the quarterbacks that they had on their depth chart, right? Thinking they can roll with Alex Orji or Davis Warren or Jack Tuttle, thinking that they had enough there. That's on Sharon Moore. That's on the offensive staff. But this strikes me at least as somebody who maybe recognized at some point midway through the year that they needed to change and has since been working diligently to try and change it.
I would say it almost feels like you've always had a soft spot for Sharon Moore and then found out Sharon Moore got a huge inheritance. And now you're just like, oh, I don't know. Maybe we could see if there's something there. That there's an infusion of cash in the Sharon
Give
Moore
love a
romance.
chance. GLAC.
Give love a chance.
GLAC.
If Sharon Moore, you're coming off a little bit like a gold digger here, Ty. A little bit.
Okay.
Well, if Larry Ellison's coming to the table, I can see Sharon. My next item is Notre Dame fans positive that people now think they're cool. I love this. I love that it wasn't just you. It was Notre Dame fans in general be like, hey, guys, we're pretty cool now. I don't know if you noticed, but we have a coach who's under 50, and we're not as unlikable on the sideline, so we're pretty cool.
And where's the tight white pants? Don't forget the tight
white pants. Our fans talk about our coach's pants a lot.
Yeah.
We're pretty cool. And meanwhile, every single Notre Dame broadcast starts out with, the year was 1942. Frank Leahy's mind was overseas in the conflict in Europe. But he thought to himself, and then we're just like, yeah, it's Notre Dame.
We don't have the rights to that. Stop humming.
So I appreciate that. But yeah, you do tune in to NBC, and they're like, Notre Dame. So I appreciated that Notre Dame fans took a nice delusional step forward in 2024. Notre Dame football, excellent, really good. Very strong on both sides of the ball. Difficult team to beat. Had a sensational season. But also, let's not go too crazy.
All right, let's not go too crazy. I agree with that. But counterpoint.
Yes.
I cannot tell you in my my late 30s now, in my 30 plus years of being a Notre Dame football fan.
Yeah.
And in my 30 plus years of having, in some cases, the same group of friends, all of whom hated Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Never before can I ever remember conversations where that same group of friends was agnostic on Notre Dame. That's a direct quote.
Yeah.
A direct quote. I cannot tell you how big of an upgrade that is.
Okay.
As compared to previous conversations.
Right.
Where it was the full kitchen sink of anti-Notre Dame stuff coming my way. It's an easy schedule. Truly ran the gamut of reasons to hate the Irish. To hear some of my very close childhood friends talking through now why they are agnostic on Notre Dame, I don't think that's likely to change. That is an upgrade. Now, are they cool? Maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
Right.
Is this a 1-year thing? Perhaps.
It's sort of like
perhaps
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, Ty. Remember that show?
I do.
Where it's like day one and they get a haircut and they're like, it's a new me. I'm like, well, there's some more work. A lot of board games in that living room. Shout out to people who like board games. I am one of those people. I like board games, but you can't have the whole identity be board games.
Why do we have 8 boxes of Parcheesi back here?
Dude, it's
interesting.
So many more than 8. Yeah. So they're like, yes, things are improved. There is something more modern that now that you own a charcuterie board or whatever. But I don't know. There's a lot of baggage there. That's all.
I have a bunch of media items.
Oh, do you?
On mine.
I have more football stuff.
Why don't you do the football stuff? I can close out with my weird media stuff.
I'm not giving up on, similarly to how I feel about Avery Johnson, I'm not giving up on Nico. I'm doubling down, Ty. I know the season did not end crazy well in Columbus OH, but
it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't not his fault.
I don't think it was his fault. I think
obviously
fine.
The Tennessee defense was not prepared for Ohio State's and the ceiling and the firepower, but he also at times. The only thing that was working for Tennessee, I guess, was Nico's legs.
Yeah.
But even still, I mean, the loss at Arkansas, like, it wasn't like an arrival of Nico in the way that I thought it would be. But I
think it's been, relative to expectations, a bit underwhelming.
Yes.
And I say that not to take anything away from Nico, because I still think he is legit. I still think he is as advertised, but for a whole multitude of reasons, it just hasn't landed quite like we expected, at least not as quickly as we expected.
I have Bret Bielema pot stirrer. I love it. I love that, he and Lane Kiffin go back and forth a little bit. I love all of that.
Mega
I love
troll.
having that in our lives. Yes.
Mega troll Bret Bielema. Yeah.
I have here, I have like very specific like style things that I just continue to love in the sport. Tulane, just in general, the wave, the helmets, the light blue uniforms.
Yep.
I have the SMU Big D branding. Anytime I see that, settle. I just appreciate that. I mentioned Oregon pain. Look, Oregon's in a wonderful place in this sport with regard to NIL and money, and they're just in a great place. I have a lot of Oregon pain memories in my life, and I'm sticking through, Ty. So I still love that. LSU's white helmet. I have Williams Bryce down here.
Yeah.
And I love, and this is more general to football and potential, I love the continued idea of, and maybe this goes with our like wild card entanglement that we talked about, Agent of Chaos Mississippi State.
Ooh.
That they have hired very specific coaches in Mike Leach and Dan Mullen and now Jeff Lebby, who are considered to be very specific offensive minds that are going to be tasked with both finding high-level players locally and also perhaps players who are slept on to run offenses that are going to give the more advantaged programs in the SEC fits and upset them sometimes and maybe even peak as like an 8, 9, 10 win program. So the idea of that in Starkville is something that I'm always going to come back to. And I think Jeff Lebby, pending what he's able to continue to do in the portal and on the trail, there is something that I just can't quit about that idea, even knowing it's a wild card tie.
I mean, if Mississippi State wins 10 games, Jeff Lebby's getting his own show next year.
I'm just saying, as a program, they have that like random season ceiling. I don't know if that exists in the new look SEC and how difficult it is now to, keep a roster together and, the things that come with being a Mississippi State. But even still, I have that down as a thing I love. And even last year, losing games.
Yeah. In
losing efforts, they were an agent of chaos.
They were interesting. The record wasn't there. They were a bad team at the end of the day, but they were interesting. I love the idea of the Van Buren boys. I thought Michael Van Buren was really good. He was a fun watch.
Yeah.
He left, going to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
That part sucks. But if they can find more guys like that, perhaps the agent of chaos thing can continue.
I have, and this is an unfortunate part of love and romance, especially in the digital era. You have to deal with stalkers, right?
Yeah,
you have to deal with people who are invasive and annoying and going too far. And so because that is an element to romance in 2025, I have down here Penn State holding truthers. I contacted Abdul Carter's 5th grade teacher in her DMs. She agrees with me. She may have blocked me, but shout out Mrs. Ebner.
He got held on every play, though.
Every play, Abdul
he did.
Carter.
You don't need to do the nasal voice. He got held on every play.
Oh, you people.
Or us people. Oregon held him every play in the Big Ten title game.
Oh,
every play.
So sorry.
Every play.
Oh, love hurts, Ty.
If you guys knew how to block, maybe you wouldn't have lost to Ohio State.
That's true. That wasn't the issue against Ohio State. Ty.
True. This is true.
We don't need to bring up old breakups, but I
holding
appreciate
truthers.
That.
He was held on literally every play.
And it's in every sport, right? It's strike zone truthers. It is holding truthers. It is traveling in the NBA, where it's just like, yes.
Listen.
Some things don't get called. It happens.
Penn State has a history of more problematic truthers. I can say that as a Penn Stater.
I totally agree.
This is not one of them, okay?
Agree.
He was held on every play.
What about the plays where he got to the quarterback and sacked the quarterback? Was that okay?
That was great. That was perfect.
Yeah, I just it was a nice new, and we get this every year with teams and fans, but this year it was Penn State holding truthers, and that's what we had.
You got anything else? Because I have weird media ones.
Anything else? I think I have the Dion experience down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love the having, and now the fascination of the Dion experience moving forward with fewer Sanders is. I think that's it. I have LSU's white helmet down and Williams Bryce.
Okay.
Things I just year over year I just continue to love.
All right, what do I have here? I have Chris Sims's obsession with the top button.
What does that mean? Oh, he goes all the way to the top even when he's not wearing a tie.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It's one of those things, much like the two mouthpiece trend. He's the only person in media I can think of who does this. And I feel like he desperately needs a cowboy hat or something to kind of like at least better explain it to the home viewer.
Yes.
If that's what you're into, he owns it. I give him props for that. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. It deserves at least a little bit of a Valentine.
You love your confusion about it.
Yeah, I do. I do.
You're paying homage. There's also something, this is very specific, and I don't know why we're talking about it, but it reminds me, when I think about Chris Sims, I think about this, where there's a very popular kind of haircut where you fade up, you shave the sides and fade up, and there is a point of no return. Tim Tebow has also reached this point with his haircut, where it goes from cool and sleek to borderline fascist.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the Tebow zone, the Chris Sims zone, the Dan Orlovsky zone, where you're just like, good looking haircut. You went about a quarter of an inch too far. And it's a little like grainy World at War footage. It's a half inch. We went too far, guys. And I think about that with Chris Sims. Continue your next item.
Yeah, Chris Sims and the fashion thing. I don't what else? Pete Nakos. I have Pete Nakos here from On 3.
Okay.
I don't have tweet alerts set up for Pete.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the fine work that Pete does. I don't know if Pete listens to this show. I see you like some of our stuff, but
he's a big new newsbreaker. Yeah.
I think he does a really good job.
Okay.
I love his On 3 like transfer portal coverage. And I stand good for, if he ever comes on the show, we need to come up with a name for like the Pete drops. My understanding is that Andy and Ari have already tried to do that. We're better at it, Pete. Don't listen to them. We're better at it. We're better at coming up with the branding thing. I love those guys. You know I love those guys. But we're better at it.
Napalm, right? For Naco?
No, that's got negative connotation.
I agree.
We'll come up with something better. But come on the show. We'll rebrand you.
Okay.
But thank you for the work that you do. You do a good job. This is another one of these things. I just have things on here that confuse me as well, as you know.
Okay. More
because I'm a curious person.
Okay.
In my late 30s. I have the TNT playoff pregame show.
You loved it?
I don't know what it was. Okay, so now remember this. TNT and TBS and let's just say Turner, they sub-licensed 2 of the playoff games from ESPN. They got the Penn State SMU home game, and they also got the, Texas Clemson game?
Mm-hmm.
They got those 2 games.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You would think that in purchasing the rights to those games, that there would be more of an emphasis on like shoulder content, I think is what it's called. Like the pregame show, the halftime show, the postgame show. They had 2 games that were back to back. It would have been very easy for them to do. So they did have the pregame show live from Beaver Stadium, which was Adam Lefkoe, who's very good, alongside Champ Bailey, Takeo Spikes, and Victor Cruz.
Yep.
It was an hour. It started at 11 a.m. Eastern time. The game kicked off at noon. It was cold as hell. Very cold. They were all freezing. And so my expectation would be that if you're going to have that game or that pregame slot, that then there would be like a halftime thing that goes with it.
Right.
And maybe a postgame thing that goes with it. And maybe like a natural transition from the Turner side into the next game, which immediately followed.
Yes.
Nope. Nothing like that. It was 1 hour and then it disappeared from the face of the earth. The halftime show went to ESPN. The pregame show for the next game also went to ESPN, and all the postgame content went to ESPN.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the plan was for that. To put those guys in that setting, which was freezing cold for 1 hour, and then for TNT and TBS and Turner as a whole to disappear from all things playoff was a choice that I still don't understand, and I am giving them my Valentine as such.
Well, did you want Kenny Smith to be recapping Texas Clemson? They just have limited number of people to talk about college football.
I understand that. But if they were willing to put a pregame show out there, why not a halftime show? Why not a postgame show? If they took the liberty of building a set inside Beaver Stadium, I believe, for this, and then we got nothing more out of it outside of that hour, just do it from the studio. Or don't do it at all. What's the point? I love the fact that they took a very half-hearted attempt at this, and then it just disappeared. And I haven't heard hide nor hair about it since. Nobody talked about it. I have this year's quarterback draft class stretching my legs a little bit with respect to college football, but I feel like it's going to be something that deserves all of our Valentines over the next couple months, because we are going to hear, frankly, some very weird things.
Okay.
Very weird things. I think there is a consensus that both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders deserve to be in that top three, but who comes after that top two, I should say, is really anyone's guess. There are people like me who are really in on Jackson Dart. There are others who I believe are hitching their wagon to Jalen Milroe because of raw potential. Quinn Ewers is also a name. It would not surprise me if you hear any garden variety of other quarterback listed in that QB3 slot, and it's going to come from people who have not watched a whole lot of college football through and through.
Right.
I am eagerly awaiting all of that content, not just because my team stands to get QB3, whoever it is. Okay. But that is something that's a preemptive Valentine, something that I am expecting to be notable over the next couple months, that I certainly will fall in love with and admire through and through, because I just think it's going to be weird.
I can appreciate this year's quarterback class because there's no seemingly obvious, like, oh yeah, this guy has just been since day one. He's the guy, right? So there's no like clearly obvious turnkey quarterback. So I'm going to equate this year's first round of the NFL draft and teams searching for quarterbacks, including, I guess, your New York Giants, to being at a restaurant and having the great fortune to be able to eavesdrop on a couple breaking up.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh man, he just dropped Josh Rosen in this conversation. So, right, this was the 2018 draft.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
I was so in on Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold obviously didn't work out in his initial stop. And who else was in that? I think it was a Josh Allen draft, which obviously the MVP worked out swimmingly. But those years, I think it was the next year where the Giants took Daniel Jones in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Where you're just like, I'm not a Giants fan, but man, I see where this is going. And I'm just glad I get to eat my veal parmesan next to this couple. Great.
That was a big draft. That was Baker.
Right. Baker Mayfield obviously didn't work out for the Browns, but is now
Saquon went 2 that year to the Giants. Darnold went 3, I believe.
Lamar went 32. Great job, NFL. Great job, right? So there's like the inexplicable quarterback draft. I always appreciate watching from afar.
Josh Rosen went in that draft, Dan. 10th overall.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
To the Cardinals. Unbelievable.
Didn't work out.
Okay. That does it. Write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know who we missed, who you're giving your Valentine to, for whatever reason. It could be confusing, as some were for me. It can just be like raw, unfettered passion. Whatever you're into, solidverbal@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media. We would love to get your opinion. If you've got the ability to comment, either out on YouTube, Spotify, and some of the other podcast platforms, we would love to hear it there as well. We read all of those comments.
Do you know who the final quarterback who was taken? You don't, obviously. Who was taken in that year's draft?
The final quarterback taken in
The 2018 draft.
I know because I'm looking at it right now, but I would have known if I weren't looking for it.
Is it John Wolford?
I believe it's Logan Woodside.
Logan Woodside? Was Wolford drafted?
Wolford? The Wolford wagon.
Yeah. Logan Woodside, Toledo. There it is.
Yeah, that was in the 7th round. There were a bunch of quarterbacks that went. Danny Etling, our boy, was drafted out of LSU. Who else is?
Those were Wolford was undrafted. Okay.
The Wolford wagon, yeah. Logan Woodside. Who else do we got here?
In that year's draft, which other quarterback?
Alex McGough.
Luke Falk to the Titans.
Oh my God. Who else we got here?
Mike White. Mike White's made some money, right?
Mike White's made some money. Tanner Lee.
Sure.
From Nebraska was drafted in the 6th round year.
Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round. He had a moment with the Steelers.
I think he's still in the league, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah. Lamar Jackson, 32. What a year. Okay. That's it.
On that note, happy Valentine's Day.
To you as well.
If it's something that you celebrate, if you're cynical and go Singles Awareness Day like I did in college, good on you as well. Whatever you are into this Friday, we support it, provided it's legal. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt, as always, hit follow, hit subscribe. Thank you for your undying support, for all the love we felt this season. Stay solid.
Peace.